Ben Wiedemann joins us now from Hong Kong. Ben, good evening. The news has come out that no flights in and out until tomorrow morning. Obviously, the protesters have no plan of leaving anytime soon. So is the expectation in the coming hours that we see Hong Kong police or the Chinese authorities, who apparently are beginning to rule this as potentially an act of terrorism to shut down an airport?
We've heard from a transportation official here in Hong Kong saying that at this point it doesn't appear that it will be necessary to actually bring the police in to break up the protests. For one thing, as soon as it was announced that the airport was shut down, that there would be no more departing flights, many of the protesters began to leave. And at this point, actually, the numbers are significantly down. And nobody is able to check into departing flights, of course, but they still are downstairs in the arrivals hall, basically chanting against the Hong Kong police as the few passengers who are arriving are exiting the airport. But we also understand that the protesters are planning to be back here tomorrow afternoon Hong Kong time to hold yet another protest. It's not clear whether the intention is to simply repeat what they did Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which was to hold a sit-in in the arrivals hall, but not actually interfere with the operations of the airport. The difference today was they went into the departure area and essentially made it impossible for travelers to check into departing flights. So we shall see how it turns out tomorrow, but at the moment numbers are down and there is not an expectation that the police will come to break up this protest as they did last night in various parts of Hong Kong, and the breakups were very violent.
Well, this is good news if we're starting to move back from what could have been a potentially dangerous situation there just a few hours ago. But clearly, I mean, we understand what the overall point of the protests are. We know the bill that they tried to fight has been effectively killed off. However, there's an inevitability of that, well, for want of a better term, wall of difference between Hong Kong and China falling in 27 years. What is the expectation of the protest movement by doing things like this? Because we all know that China is more likely to move that date forward rather than say, no, beyond 27 years, Hong Kong can stay as it is.
Yeah, the question is where are the protests going, and it's not altogether clear. What we've heard from Carrie Lam, the chief executive, is that they're not budging. The Hong Kong government is not budging, and they have received consistent rhetorical support from Hong Kong, from the Chinese government in Beijing. And therefore, basically, neither side seems to be willing to compromise. Now, what we've seen increasingly over the last 2 weekends is that the focus of the anger of the protesters is on the police, and it's widely believed that the police are, in a sense, taking their orders from Beijing to take a hard line, not to give any ground, and to become increasingly harsh in their response to these protests. Yesterday, 9 people injured, among them a young woman who was hit in the eye with a police beanbag. We were out this morning at police headquarters in Hong Kong, and they were putting on display one of their water trucks used to disperse riots. So it does appear that they are going to take an increasingly harder line. That's what we saw yesterday, but today we saw the response of the protesters, which was to shut down the 8th busiest airport in the world. So the stakes are getting higher. Beijing is sitting on the sidelines at the moment, but they have made it clear that if things get completely out of control, it is perfectly legal, if the Hong Kong government requests it, for Chinese troops to come and deal with the protesters themselves.